Hello and welcome to Brimwood Farm. It's cold out there, it's frozen, my hair is going mad, so it must be winter. So let's go and take a tour. So the first thing to show you guys are seeds. A couple of weeks ago you will have seen that I put in some seeds. So these little guys are aubergines. Once they've grown up a little bit more, I will put them into pots and put them on the kitchen windowsill so they get a bit of warmth. These are the Achillea noblessa, and they've come up really well. And these are the winter lettuces, which have been a horrid nightmare. It got really wet in here, it got really mouldy, and so the seeds rotted. So you can see that I've got a couple of very straggly little seedlings coming up, but I've had to reseed that. So we'll keep it warm and we'll see how we go. So that is the seeds, that's the inside. Let's go into the garden so I can show you around. So the first thing I should probably say is not a huge amount has changed since the October November tour, because the ground is still solid. But you can see here, this has been brutalised by the frost rather. I put it up in September, it had this proliferation of growth, and you can see these new leaves are soft compared with the older tough leaves, and the frost has got in and killed them. I will just cut these off come spring and it should be absolutely fine. The bean trough is still stark, there's nothing in it, there won't be anything in it for a while. I have decided I'm going to try and grow some squashes as well at the base. It's shady, so it's not ideal for squashes, but I don't want to grow them in my main area just because they're not a great market garden crop for where I am right now. You can't sell them for huge amounts, and they certainly have a long period of growth, but I want to grow some, so I'm going to try them in there and we'll see how they go. The alpine troughs are starting to settle in, which is kind of nice, and the really nice thing is the first bulbs are starting to appear. So there's some little iris shoots appearing, which is kind of exciting, and everything is starting to settle in. So there is signs of life, even though it's the middle of winter. The pine looks lovely as ever, probably one of my favourite plants in the garden. And then my sort of designed ornamental bed has become undesigned just because I needed space for veggies. So all the plants that used to be up in the patch up there have now all been shoved in here. So it's going to be quite a random assortment of flowers this coming year. Now, down here, the very first shoot of those daffodils that I planted has appeared. And then there's quite a lot of other little shoots appearing, you can see here. These are allium drumstick. You might have seen before, these are nicotiana. They're actually annuals, but they survived so far. So I'm just going to leave them in and see if they actually repeat flower this year, which would be a miracle if they did, but it may be great because I won't have to plant any more. There's new leaves coming up on the heucheras, which is rather lovely. But it all looks quite dead. There's some beautiful new leaves here as well, which are rather fantastic. And then this was the start of my cutting garden patch, and you might remember I put in some cornflowers and some larkspur. Well, this was where the cornflowers were. Can you see any cornflowers? No. That is because a chicken escaped and ate them all. That's life with chickens. The larkspur haven't done that great either, although I have got a couple of plants that have survived. But it's not a problem because these will just get an early start in the season, and then I will just sow some more of those in here. There's a lovely geum starting to come up here, which is rather nice. So there are signs that life is starting. And then I've got some irises here. These are cutting irises that I can cut the flowers of, and they're just starting to come up too. Here we have the pyracantha, or firethorn as it's called, and it has made a few berries. This was just one plant that I put in last year, and it has started to grow well. So I'm hoping I'm going to feed it a lot and water it a lot this year, and I'm going to try and get it to spread along this horrible fencing so that I can make a nice barrier. I'll also put it behind the greenhouse there, and hopefully that will not only cover this unsightly fence but also make it more difficult for burglars and thieves and things to come into the garden. And then let's go into the greenhouse. You can see it needs cleaning, but I've got a few things in here. Firstly, these are all my cannas that have just been left to dry out, and then they'll get watered in the spring and start their regrowth. And then I've got cuttings in here mostly. So I've got some choisia, I've got some hebe cuttings that have really taken off and turned into some great little plants. I can put them out next year. These are the box cuttings that you might have remembered from last year. Did a video. They haven't done anything really. Boxes are very slow to start, but you can see they're all still green, which means they're all still alive. And there are a few little bits with new growth here. This one's got new growth, for example, so they're doing all right. There's also a few lupins that were planted last year, and I tend to keep a few annuals in here that would ordinarily die outside. But if you keep them, they often overwinter. So I've got some cosmosy things here, and I've got some nicotiana here. And I'll just keep a few of these alive throughout the winter, and then I'll put them outside, and they just get a head start on next year's annuals. And I find that really, really works. So what I'll do when I put these ones out is I'll just chop them back so they get the new shoots coming out, and I'll pop them back out when the last frosts have gone rather, and they'll give me some early colour. And everything in the vegetable garden really looks very much the same. There is some bronze fennel, which is an ornamental, it's not an edible, coming up. And actually I've just spotted today that on the apple, it's not burst into leaf yet, but if you look on one of these buds, if I can get it in focus, you can see there on the end, there is signs of life. So the dried up husks of buds have disappeared, and there is actually a little bit of, if you can find my finger, a little bit of a sign of life there. So that implies that spring might be on the way as well. Everything else is much the same as I showed you the other day. The kale have defrosted, and these look like little pom-poms. The chard is fine. The beans down there are still growing. The chicken coop, well, there is some good news in that Gertrude here has started laying again. So Barry's obviously doing his job. So we've started collecting the eggs from them. And I think that's about all. There's some more growth on the tulips you can see here. Everything's defrosted today, so it's looking a little bit better. And actually there's also some signs of life from some of the daisies down here. So they're starting to appear. So it's an exciting time when things actually start to show signs of growth again. So the winter garden hasn't really changed a lot from the autumn garden, because this year, for a change, it's actually been frozen. Everything looks a bit messy and untidy, and I can't wait for that new growth to come up so I can start clearing away all the debris. But I am pleased to see that there is growth and greenery starting to poke through the soil. So as we go through the year, I'll probably give you monthly updates because things will change a lot more quickly. But at the moment, that is our winter tour, and I will see you again soon. Bye.